My name is Dakota, and I'm a senior portrait and wedding photographer in Wilmington, North Carolina. And today we're going to talk about ceremony times. So I get this question a lot when I am talking to my potential brides and then also some of the brides that I've booked, that they are really concerned about what time they want to set the ceremony at. Which seems like it would be a relatively simple task, since most of the time people have their ceremonies around the same time. I mean, there's not a ton of variation, but there are a couple of factors that go into it that you just want to make sure that you're considering, so that way you can choose a ceremony time to put on your save the date and invitations and send them out before we actually go in and start making your detailed timeline. Because with the detailed timeline, that's usually when your photographer and videographers come in, and we will talk through all of the details of the day, map out exactly what timestamps things are going to be happening at, and then that way you know how to communicate with the other vendors about when things need to arrive and all of that stuff. But the ceremony time is obviously set when the invitations are going out and when the save the date is going out, and so you want to have a really good idea of when you want it to actually start. So I have a list of things that came to mind from past conversations when I've been talking with brides about what should be considered when you are setting your ceremony time. It's not in an order of importance, because obviously your ceremony time and all of this stuff is completely up to your preference and things that you value and care about the most. But it is just a list of things that you can talk about with your groom and your planner as a whole, and then decide what makes the most sense for you based on all of your preferences. All right, so the first one is your venue time. So this is important to understand what time you're allowed into the venue and then what time you're going to be needing to come out of the venue. Obviously, we want enough time before the ceremony for us to come in and get everything set up. If you're getting ready on site and you have a bridal suite, you want to have enough time where you can get in and get your girls' hair and makeup done. And then also have everything set up at least an hour to 45 minutes before people are going to start showing up. I have always seen guests, there's always somebody that comes at least 30 minutes before the actual ceremony time starts. So you want to be prepared for your early birds, because they will be there. And then on the flip side, you also want to understand what time you need to be out of the venue. Does that include cleanup and setup, so that way you have an understanding of how much time it's going to take to clean everything up? Then you know when people are going to be leaving, and then you want your reception to be however long you have in mind. If you're somebody who loves to dance and you want to have plenty of time for people to eat, and then also have 2 to 3 hours of dancing, then that's something you should keep in mind when you're kind of figuring out where the ceremony fits in between those two time slots. Another thing to think about is the actual style of the wedding. And so if you want something that is going to be a little bit more formal, usually those are later in the evening. If you want people to be more casual and you have more of a casual type style dress to your wedding, then earlier in the day is going to make a lot more sense for that. Which also kind of feeds into the types of food that you're going to be having. So if you are going to have a more formal wedding where you've got multiple courses and things like that, it's okay to have it later because that's what people expect. But if you're going to do something that is lighter and maybe isn't like a full meal or something like that, then you can have it earlier in the day. So also talking about getting ready, you want to make sure that you are planning your hair and makeup people around when the ceremony is. Usually the hair and makeup times kind of coincide with this is when you need to get ready. But if you know you want to have an early ceremony, then you need to think about the fact that your girls are going to have to wake up really, really early to get ready for the day. If you want to have kind of a lazy morning, maybe you have planned something for the guys in the morning, or the girls are going to do a bridal brunch or something like that, then you want to think about being able to give yourself enough time to enjoy that part of the experience, and then also having everything ready for the ceremony time. And then one of the biggest things when it comes to picking your ceremony time, which I say that everything is of equal importance, but this is probably the biggest one to consider, is obviously when the sun is going to set. So the sun obviously sets at different times throughout the year, usually from late fall, early spring. That's when it's going to be setting a lot earlier, and then all throughout the summer it's going to be up a lot longer than it would at any other time of the year. The things that you need to think about when it comes to the sun and when it's going to be setting is There's actually a couple of steps. So you need to think about how much light is going to be let into your venue. If you have a beautiful church that you're getting married in and you picked it because you love the big windows and the stained glass, well, obviously those things are not going to be highlighted the way that you want them to be if the sun is already set. So if you want them to be beaming in that way, then you can kind of figure out what time you want everybody in the church or in that venue to be able to have the light coming in bright. And then another thing is obviously portraits. This is going to be the biggest thing that that I talk to all of my brides and any bride about when they're picking their ceremony time, and that is making sure that you have enough time to have the ceremony and then also have family photos, family portraits after the ceremony, and then also your newlywed bride and groom portraits. The reason that I talk about this is because sometimes the bride and groom portraits, by the end of the day, especially if you didn't do a first look, they get forgotten. If you're having a winter wedding and you don't want to get married at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then your bridal portraits are almost going to be guaranteed to be done in flash, which is fine. I'm not a huge fan of the way that flash looks just because I love the way that natural light looks where we've got the glow and all of that stuff. It's just a little bit less flexible than if you had that natural sunlight. So if portraits are something that are really, really important to you, then you need to think about giving yourself enough time with sunlight after the ceremony, or figuring out what it looks like to have a first look incorporated in your day. So if you have a first look, you actually get to take all of that time that would have been after the ceremony and put it before the ceremony. So we would do all of the family photos that we could do. We would also do all of the bridal parties, so we don't have to worry about rounding them up after the ceremony or getting any pictures of the whole bridal party together. And then we would also do portraits before the ceremony. So of course, I'm a huge proponent of the first look because of the fact that you have a lot more flexibility, especially if you're having like a late fall, winter, or early spring wedding when the sun is going to be setting really early, because you essentially get 2 sets of portrait time, the portrait time beforehand, before the ceremony, and then also afterwards. If you are dead set on not having a first look and you also want to get married where it's not getting married super early and you know you're going to have to do your portraits probably when there isn't a lot of sunlight left, then I would recommend making sure that your photographer is really comfortable with flash and that you like the way that the flash photos look. But I definitely recommend prioritizing your portraits because those, to me at least, are the most important photos of the entire day, because that's why we're all here. That's what it's all about, the 2 of you guys getting married, and all of this money that is being spent is on getting the 2 of you guys together. And so it would be such a shame if that was not thought about when you are picking your ceremony time, and then you end up having to compromise in another area that maybe you're really dead set on not having a first look, but you also really want nice portraits. And so I don't want anybody to have to make a really difficult decision later in the process once they've already made their choice of when they are going to be starting their ceremony. So it's a good idea to sit down with your partner and then, potentially your planner, probably your photographer as well, and just have a conversation really, really far in the beginning to understand at least, what time the ceremony needs to be, since that is going to be the time that everything shifts around. Then when we get to creating the actual detailed timeline, things go pretty smoothly because you can kind of work around all of that stuff. But those are the things that I want to make sure that my brides know, and that honestly all brides know, so that way when you are picking that time that's going to be printed on an invitation, it's going to be really difficult to change later, that you feel really confident in the choice that you've made, and you know that you're going to be able to get all of the things that are important. So if you liked this video and you thought it was really helpful for you when you're in your wedding planning craziness, then make sure to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe for more video content related to wedding planning, wedding photography, preparing for your big day, anything that you need to know from a photographer's wedding industry perspective. All right, bye guys.